Okay, I think we are about ready to get started. So I want to introduce, I'm Karen O'Donoghue. I'm from the education team here at the IETF, as is Rich Sauls. He and I are currently co-chairing the Edu team. We offer a series of tutorials. We also do the newcomers overview, the newcomers feedback session on Thursday morning, and we do a number of other things as well. So there's two things I'd like to ask of you. At the end of this, there's going to be a link to a survey. We really are interested in your feedback on this particular tutorial itself. And then towards the end of the week, we're interested in any feedback you have on things that we can do to make your experience here at the IETF better. There is a mailing list, edu-team@ietf.org. It's in one of the slides. You'll see it as it comes through. So we welcome your feedback there as well. And with that, I'd like to introduce our two speakers for today. Providing the newcomers overview, we have Anshal Maharti from Boston University. I'm fairly certain I mispronounced her last name because she's always been just Anshal to me, but as I turned to her, I was like, oh, I just realized I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but you can fix it. And Rich Sauls from Akamai. So I hope you all enjoy this, and I'll talk to you later.
Karen, you have one of the slides? We did nothing. Yeah.
Sorry.
How you know it's a realistic tutorial, first time make it be remote participation or the remote. how to get on the screen.
Just so you know, this is the flow chart for how these things work.
Yeah. That's not. Yeah, sure. Sorry about this.
Oh, that's done. Sorry. It's not.
All right.
Finally, we are here.
Now that we have your attention,
Yes. Well, we have more folks coming in, so that's good.
we're waiting for that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anshul Malhotra from Boston University. I'm a PhD student there, and my research basically focuses on the security of internet protocols. And here at IETF, I'm involved with several working groups, primarily with the NTP working group. And other security groups. This is, I guess, my 10th IETF now, 10th or 12th. Well, I've enjoyed every single bit of it, and I hope that you guys too. So let's get you all started. First of all, I have a question. Can I see a show of hands for those who are newcomers here? And by newcomers, I mean those who have attended up to 5 meetings. Okay, most of you. And who are the first timers, like the very first? Okay, well, that should have been my first question, I guess. Great. So most of you have not attended this in-person newcomers tutorials, and maybe some of you have attended. Any of you have attended the webinars that happened before? Great, okay. Cool, so today we are going to equip you with a lot of information so that you can have a better week here. First of all, welcome to Montreal. It's a beautiful city. Do explore it. I would like to thank Brad and Mike for drafting this presentation. A lot of other people have afterwards worked on it. So I'm sure, I haven't met them personally, but I'm sure they're great people. They have done a great job. You'll see that. So first of all, this and the following slide, these are the IETF Note Well slide. As the name suggests, it's a Note Well slide, so you better note it well. You're going to see this slide a lot of times during this entire week, specifically before every working group session, and we'll talk about what working groups are and what working group sessions are, but you're going to see this slide. This slide is basically, it applies to all the IETF participation, whether you are participating in person or remotely. It basically reminds you that all the participants of the IETF agrees to abide by the IETF policies on various topics. I don't expect you to read this whole thing right now, but it's important that you read it before any sort of participation at IETF. This is again the continuation of the IETF Note Well slide. These are different BCPs, that is best current practices documents, which are the RFCs, and they have like details on several topics that IETF has policies on, and that you as an IETF participant would agree to abide by. There is BCP for standards processes, working group processes where most of the work of IETF happens. Then there are policies for anti-harassment, code of conduct, patents and copyright. And then most recently, there is a BCP on privacy policy that is about the that how IETF handles all the information that you provide to IETF. So if you guys are interested in that kind of thing, you should go through all these BCPs. Okay. So here at IETF, we try to provide you with all the necessary information and resources that are necessary for you to get started for this week and get integrated into the community. So there are a lot of newcomers activities that are organized at every IETF meeting. So before this newcomers tutorial, there were webinars for the newcomers. And today, this is the newcomers tutorial. You're here. It's from 12:30 to 1:30. The next newcomers event is the IETF Quick Connections. That's also today at 4 p.m. It requires a pre-registration. There's a newcomers IETF newcomers page. There's a link there. You can go there and register yourself. It's a limited space event, so it's better that you register early. This event is basically, here you'll meet the IETF leadership. So you can have, it's a very efficient way to meet the working group chairs, area directors, mentors, and other leaders, other veterans at the IETF. And yes. Is it? Okay, maybe closed. As I told, it's a limited space event, so probably it's full. I think you can still probably go. That's fine.
If you don't feel comfortable trying to crash into it during the reception, people will have big name badges on it. Just feel free to go up and talk to folks.
I'm sure there's some way to get in. So yeah, you can have short one-to-one conversations with the experienced IETFers there. It'll be a good start of the week. You can ask queries if you want, if you're interested in certain specific topic, you can go ask them. Yeah, it will give you a good kickoff for surviving the rest of the week. And also, it's not a formal event. There'll be no speeches or presentations. It's a very laid back and informal event. There'll be beer, there'll be wine, there'll be soda, there'll be some snacks. So I suggest you should go there. Okay, so this is in the evening today. Then there is this IETF Guides mentoring program. It was known as IETF mentoring program earlier, but now it's in. So basically, you're assigned a guide. May I know how many people have a mentor assigned already? Okay, very few people actually. I would highly suggest that you should go ask for a mentor. That will help. Like, it's super easy to ask questions, any specific questions. They will also guide you and guide you through, like, tell you all about IETF and guide you to how to meet new people, how to approach different working group sessions, or like which working group session is happening when. There are several parallel tracks going on at the same time. I mean, they can be very useful for answering any questions. So you should have a guide assigned to yourself. Then there is this newcomers dinner. It's not an official event. It is organized by a secretariat. And you have to pay, I guess, $25 for this dinner. So if you're interested, you can register yourself and pay for this dinner. It's a newcomers only dinner. It's also a mingling event, networking event. You can meet with IETFers and other newcomers here. Then towards the end of the week, that is on Thursday, we have an early morning newcomers feedback session. We are really interested in knowing what you feel about all these initiatives and all these activities that we have organized, and how did it help or did not help you get through the week? How do you feel about it? And what are the other things that you would like to include and that would help newcomers? So this is really important. And then, as Karen mentioned, there is a survey form that we would like you to fill up to get the feedback. All right, so this is almost about the newcomers activities. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the scope of this tutorial, like what you should and should not expect from what we are going to talk about today. So this presentation basically is focused on providing you with the information and resources that are immediately useful to you as you're attending your first meeting. It'll give you a kickoff, a good start for the meeting for this entire week. And we'll also talk about some of the strategies to how to approach people and make new connections, or whether you're, well, all of you are here in person. So yeah, this is almost what we will talk about in this meeting. We'll also provide some information about key people and resources towards the end of the presentation. But this is not all about IETF. IETF is much broader than what we are going to talk about today in this tutorial. So this presentation does not really include, I'm not going to talk about the history of the IETF or how to write standards documents and the process of standardization. And there are several other things, but we will, but there is this link to the YouTube channel where you can find more information about all these topics. Okay, in the next, any questions so far? Okay, so in this section now, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what IETF is and its related organizations and processes. So first off, what is the mission of IETF? The mission of the IETF is to make the internet work better by producing high quality, relevant technical documents that influence the way people design, use, and manage the internet. So basically what we are trying to do here is to develop and maintain the standard technologies to provide service in the internet. So we want to ensure that the technology that we provide here at IETF provides the necessary functionality. We also want to make sure that the technology is easily and efficiently deployable. We also want this technology, we want to make sure that the technology is scalable at both the deployment as well as the usage level. And we also want to make sure that the technology that we deploy is secure in itself as well as at the operational level. So basically, the mission of IETF, in a nutshell, is to make the internet work better by writing high-quality internet standards documents. So IETF, it's a standards development organization. There are several other SDOs, but IETF is different from these SDOs in a lot of aspects. So IETF is basically a voluntary-based organization. It's a self-selected individual participation. There is no formal membership, unlike other SDOs. Anybody can come willingly and join, and anybody can go whenever they wish to. Another important and very unique feature of IETF is that to reach a consensus, we do not follow a formal voting procedure. What we do instead is a hum, and we'll talk about it later in this presentation. But unlike, the important point here is that unlike other standards organization where voting is the main way of reaching a consensus, here we do not believe in a formal voting process. Additionally, IETF does not have any formal government or a government role or any private corporations role. It's a very individual participation-based organization. Another important and unique factor is that the standards that we develop or write here are not mandated. We don't mandate standards on people. The standardization is mostly driven by market-based adoption. So if people think that a standard technology is useful, they would read it, they would deploy it and see if it works. And that's how a specification becomes a standard, when people actually think that it is useful and it is deployed. So that's how it's kind of a bottoms-up approach as opposed to going from standardization to adoption. We believe in going from adoption to standardization. So it's a very market adoption-based process. At IETF, we are primarily focused on improving the internet, working on internet technologies. That is where the focus is, and that is where we think our expertise is, as opposed to other organizations where they are involved with several other things like other processes and parts of internet, improving the internet. But here at IETF, our core focus is on working on the internet technologies that provide service. And as I said, this is a very bottoms-up approach as opposed to a top-down approach, which is pretty unique compared to other STOs. All right, so this is really interesting. If you're here for technology, then you should definitely look at the slide and dig deeper into all these areas. So the work of IETF is organized into working groups. Those are the workhorse of IETF, you can say. And IETF groups these working groups into these groups. All right, so there are currently 7 areas, broad areas, and the working groups fall under one of these areas. These areas are mostly dynamic. We form one if we feel we need another area, and we can collapse one if we don't need any more working groups under that area. So currently there are these 7 working groups. I'll not get into details of these groups, but the names are pretty self-explanatory. Each of these areas have 1 or 2 area directors who take care of coordination between the working groups that are a part of these areas and see if they are performing the necessary functions that are required for a particular working group. These area directors are appointed by NOMCOM, that is the nomination committee, typically for a period of 2 years. So the area directors take care of these areas, and then under these areas, there are working groups which are specific to some specific problem that they're trying to solve on the internet. And these working groups have chairs who are present here in person, and then they organize working groups at the IETF. Okay, so the IETF and consensus. This is a very, very unique feature here at IETF. As I said, IETF does not believe in a majority rule philosophy. So the IETF mantra, we reject kings, precedents, and voting. We believe in rough consensus and running code. So how do we achieve rough consensus? As I said, voting is one option, but that doesn't really resonate well with the idea, with the mantra of IETF and the people here. So whenever in a working group session, the working group chair wants to know the temperature of the room on a certain topic, or how many people agree to something or disagree, what they usually do is, instead of a show of hands or a voting process, they ask people in the room to hum, like hum, for or against a topic. And when people do that, the working group chair is responsible for judging basically the weight of yes or no. It doesn't tell anything unequivocally, like what is the real decision, but it just gives an idea of where on the spectrum of completely acceptable to completely unacceptable people in the room are. It's really interesting. So then the working group chair is responsible for deciding whether we are going for or against. And it's not decided on the spot, like this decision is then taking, this issue or topic is then taken over to the mailing list, and it is continued there. This is basically to accommodate those people who could not attend who were not present there in person, and then the whole process, not the humming, but the entire discussion is taken to the mailing list, and then we reach judgment. So that's the way how we reach rough consensus. And there's this really interesting, if you're interested, you should go read RFC 7282 that describes the whole history of why we follow and how it all started, the humming process. Another important thing is that about rough consensus is that everybody's voice is heard and addressed, but not necessarily accommodated. So not one person's dissenting opinion can control reaching us a judgment. It's a rough consensus. Okay, let's talk a little bit about IETF culture. As I said, it's a very, it's an individual voluntary-based participation. So the people who are here are very, very passionate, and they are motivated and self-driven. They're smart people. They are very vocal about their opinions. So if you hear people in the hallway yelling at each other, don't get scared. It's just the way they are. They are trying to reach a good solution, trying to hear each other. Also, you should keep in mind that these people, some of these people have been coming to these IETFs for like last 20 years. They know each other really well. They know how to talk to each other. They know their ways. So don't get scared off. If you're interested in talking to someone, just go there, introduce yourself, talk to them. It'll be all fine. You'll be accommodated. Don't worry about it. Another thing is technical excellence and topical knowledge is highly valued. So I would suggest if you're attending some working group sessions, make sure that you have read the relevant documents. And if you say something smart and technical, people would, you'll be accommodated. You'll be heard. And that says a lot about IETF culture. We are very, it's pretty informal, like. It's very friendly. Just like IETF culture, the dress code is also very informal. People mostly here like to wear t-shirts. Well, I'm in a little bit of formal attire here today. That's not how I am normally. But if that's your way, go for it. Whatever you want to do, you want to wear informals, formals, it's all acceptable here. Yeah, and as I said, people have been coming here for a very long time. They have close working relationships with each other, and people know each other very well at both personal as well as professional level. So it's a very very friendly environment. Yes. Okay. This is, yes, this is interesting. So as a newcomer here in this week, you're going to get a lot of acronyms. I would suggest do not pay attention, too much attention to all of them. A little bit is fine. If you're working, if you're interested in the, mostly interested in the technical thing, the slide, previous slide on the technical areas, you should dig deeper into it. And these you'll get these different working and moving parts of IETF that makes this entire organization work gradually as you start attending more meetings and getting more involved in the administrative stuff. But just to give you an overview about different moving parts of IETF, there are several groups. The first one here is IESG, Internet Engineering Steering Group. This group is basically for the technical administration of the IETF. It is also the one who finally approves the specifications to becoming the RFC standards. Then there is IRTF, Internet Research Task Force. This organization is this group is basically focused on longer-term research areas, research topics in the internet, as opposed to its parallel organization, IETF, which is focused more on the immediate engineering and standardization processes. So IRTF is more research, long-term research-focused groups. For instance, there is CFRG group, that is the Crypto Forum Research Group, that provides guidelines on adoption of emerging crypto technologies. Then there is really interesting HPRC, which is the HRPC, that's Human Rights Protocol Consideration Group, which considers how standards and protocols that we develop here could enable, strengthen, or weaken human rights. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, you should go attend. I think the meeting is on Friday. It's really interesting. And apart from these, there are several other research groups that are, not all of the research group meetings happen every IETF, but a few, a subset of them sure happen at different IETF meetings throughout the year. Then there is this Internet Architecture Board that provides an oversight for the technical requirements of the internet. So they're also involved in writing RFCs and standards. The Internet Architecture Board. Recently, there was a workshop organized by, I'm not sure if it was organized by IAB. Yeah, web packaging. Yes. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there was this web packaging workshop organized by IAB. And the IETF LLC, as the name suggests, it's mostly involved with the administrative and management work at IETF. You can read more about it. There are resources available if you're interested in getting more insight into how the administration of IETF works. But for now, don't get lost into this alphabet soup. Okay, so this was the slide that I was talking about, basically. Well, do you want to continue? Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the week that started yesterday, continuing through today and running until Friday. This is sort of the most pragmatic advice. The agenda, if you've all registered, you've gotten a copy, either links online to the agenda. There's also an agenda app for Android and iPhone. Sometimes they have little printouts and fanfold paper that are worth doing. There are about 130 working groups in the IETF, as Anshul mentioned. They are the unit of work within the IETF, the people that do things. About 80 of them are meeting this week. There's also what's called Birds of a Feather. It's from the English or American phrase, birds of a feather flock together, meaning like-minded individuals. And this is the step before an actual working group is formed. So there'll be announcements, and there are announcements, and things are in the agenda about BOFs for various topics. There may be, it's called working group forming, meaning the intent is we want to end up with a working group that then has to get approved by the area directors, or we just want to get together and see if there's interest. A BOF might meet once or twice, for example. ANRW, the IRTF is meeting also. There's about 15 sessions. It's actually, you can consider it to be part of the IETF meetings. They're in the agenda. You can just go and show up. A lot of the terminology and workflow is very similar. Instead of talking about a working group, there's a research group. Instead of talking about an internet draft or an RFC, there's research documents. And as Anshul mentioned, some of them are very focused on sort of being the advanced R&D group of the IETF, and some are focused on being more social oriented. There's one, for example, the largest scale one I know of is called Global Access to the Internet for All, Gaia. How do we get the internet everywhere? There's the Applied Networking Research Group. This is an ACM affiliated organization. It's meeting all day tomorrow. I think registration is still open for that. It obviously conflicts with working group meetings that are tomorrow, like 2 that I'm chairing, so I can't go, unfortunately. There is also plenaries, 2 this year, one right after the other, a technical one and the administrative one, the paper pushing. There's an invited lunch talks. There's the tutorial program, which you're part of here. There's a follow-on, another tutorial about how to write security considerations about 30 minutes after this one. There's a social event. There's a mailing list for IETF 105 attendees. You're probably, when you registered, you may have signed up or not signed up for that list. One of the most common uses of the mailing list is, hey, does anybody have a spare social ticket? Especially as it gets close to the event. There's a hot RFC, which is request for comments, or request for conversation. People say, well, I don't even know if this is a working group idea, but here is, some research that I've been working on or something I've been thinking about. They talk for 10 minutes and see maybe there's interest. I've had a number of people, I've volunteered them from the hot RFC to come talk at, say, ACME or other working groups. We're trying an experiment with this meeting. The first hour of every day is set aside for side meetings. One of those, I guess, is the newcomers debriefing, although that's before the side meeting, just to get together and talk with people that you've met during the week and so on. Oh, yes. Yeah, I think that comes later. There's also Tuesday, right? Monday morning is the IETF Sisters Breakfast. You can see at 8, you can see Anshul to sign up for that if you want. Anybody who identifies as female is welcome to come to that. It's a support organization for women within the IETF, and there's a slide and a picture coming up. There's a lot of activities not on the agenda. Hallway meetings, bar BOFs. That's where it's like, hey, let's go talk about network disk drive access, things like Dropbox and Google Drive and so on, and they go off to a bar and talk. Right? Marathon editing sessions. We're trying to resolve some nasty issues that the working group has identified. We'll just get together in a closed room, or there's little breakout rooms throughout, and do that. We have an app, the agenda, as I mentioned. Working group sessions are the main point. That's sort of the justification why most of us are here. Not everybody, but most of us. Work is officially, and the IETF work is officially done on mailing lists. The meetings face-to-face are to talk about what's happened since the last face-to-face meeting, what the open issues are. The H2, one of those 2 working groups, for example, is only about issues. There's no new work being discussed. That's what their agenda says. The sessions are all streamed and recorded. This session is being streamed and recorded as well. Find folks in the back of the room. So you can always, it's often worthwhile. There's usually unavoidable conflicts. I really wanted to go to this and that, but they're meeting at the same time. Shortly after the IETF meeting, you can go to the IETF YouTube channel on YouTube and watch the meeting that you didn't see. Birds of a feather I mentioned. Here is a poster session, someone presenting at the reception for their birds of a feather. Acme, the certificate, Let's Encrypt certificate protocol, now does 10 million certificates a year, and it started, it started up, and then there was a BOF, and then there was a working group, and the RFC was published, 6 months ago. So they can be very successful. IRTF, it's officially part of one of these alphabet soup organizations that Chantal pointed to. Anshal pointed to. I got up very early this morning. Sorry. There's a RFC primer on the difference between the IETF and the IRTF. As I said, they share on purpose a lot of similar terminology, and they're hosted by the same parent organization. Applied networking research, it's a forum for academics. This is how we are starting to bring more academic involvement and participation into the IETF. There's also the ANRW Applied Networking Research Prize. It includes a free trip to the IETF and I think $1,000 for the best engineering paper, networking paper presented in the past year. And that will be presented, I guess, at the plenary. Plenary is a Latin word. It means everybody, which I found out. So this is what the plenary looks like. It'll be held in the held in the grand ballroom, the same one that the reception is in. There's a dais at the front, and the various leadership teams will cycle through that. I'm on the IAB. You got any questions for the IAB? Okay, next. I'm in the IESG. Any questions? Okay, next. I'm the executive director. Here's what our budget looks like. Next. It's nitty-gritty details about how the organization works. This year, there's also a separate co-located just before technical plenary, and I don't recall what the topic is, but worthwhile. Nothing else is scheduled against the plenaries. Invited lunch talk, the sponsor, in this case, NBC Universal Comcast, NBC Universal, whatever the thing is. They will have a speaker, I think on Thursday. Hackathons and code sprints. So if your first time and you haven't missed it, you sort of missed it now. The code sprint is where on Saturdays, where smaller group of people develop the website that powers all of the workflow for generating RFCs. Hackathons are for people just want to get together and discuss, and work on their implementation and make sure they interoperate. Notable successes have been Quick, TLS 1.3. Right now we're doing TEEP and some DNS work. Later on in the week, there'll be a hackathon happy hour where there'll be a presentation from some of the more successful things. In the future, it's sort of free. It's separate registration. They provide nice lunch, table space, and you can just sign up on a wiki for things you are interested in working on for the next IETF. Next IETF is November in Singapore, and then after that, it's, I think, Vancouver. Social events. So the picture on the left is from the social in Singapore, the National Aquarium, a really big tank. It's a very big tank. And then one picture on the right is a picture from the Sisters Breakfast from London. Okay, so 95, a number of sessions ago. There are also many, many informal sessions. The IETF starts in the morning. We serve a continental breakfast. Many people get the hotel breakfast. There's the side meetings, informal chats, planning for the day, skimming over the the drafts that you want for the meetings you want to attend, all the way through, lunch. There's a break, there's lunch, there's dinner. Sometimes there's a session after dinner. That's often the plenaries, for example. And then you get together, often, not required, get together with friends, colleagues, people you just met earlier in the day to have after dinner beer, drink, go out and socialize, or more likely go out and work. It is a long day. There are lots of things going on, and which brings me to the last bullet on this slide. Remember to sleep. It's tiring. By the end of the week, as tired as people are of seeing that note well slide that Anshul started with, you'll see it at every single session as a reminder. Don't talk about private patents. Don't harass anybody. Be kind to your neighbors. The note well stuff. They'll be even more tired, just ready to crash out on the flights or driving on the way home, however you get home. A few key points about etiquette. We want to be respectful and tolerant towards everybody. The IETF started as a U.S. contracted kind of thing. It has since grown to be global. We are deliberately, for example, we meet once in the U.S. hemisphere, once in Europe in March. We were in Prague last March, and then once in Asia. So it's called 111 to get global participation. We try to make sure that people who can't attend in person are able to participate, such as streaming and YouTube videos. Also, we have something called Meet Echo, which is a great service where people can participate remotely or just listen in remotely. So we've had remote presenters. We will present often on a topic they just can't make it to wherever the meeting happens to be. Talk and listen. Listening is obviously more important than talking. Bringing new work to the IETF, we're trying to encourage this, except maybe blockchain. That's a joke. Find the way to do it. If you have an idea that you think might be useful to help the internet work better, that's a very broad umbrella on purpose. Find some collaborators. Good way is, well, this is kind of related working group, so let me go specialize that. Let me talk to the working group chair, see if they think it's interesting. Let me put a note near the schedules, paper schedules that are printed in the registration area, I guess down that way. Just get a bunch of people together. Post on the IETF 105 attendees list. Hey, I want to talk about, ways to use DNS to find my phone, whatever it's going to be. You propose a BOF. Then you're starting to get into more formal structure. There is a tutorial from a couple meetings ago on how to bring new work to the IETF. The slides are available. There's also a video of that presentation. So just because there's things, it's a good, vibrant technical community, always eager to get involved in more areas. The way working groups work. So the rooms will all be set up like this. They'll be, at the table will be the working group chairs. Their primary responsibility is time management. For example, I can tell you right now, we're going to run long. They coordinate the speakers, have set up the agenda and all of the slides before the meeting. The speakers stand here. In this case, there's a pink X to make sure that the video cameras are, can record you. If you step off camera, it's uncomfortable to the people remote and to the video. There's a microphone. This is a smaller room, so there's one. With the plenaries, there are 6 or 8. A bigger meeting, such as TLS or DNS, will have 2 mics, and the rooms will be almost half again or twice this size. If you want to say something, you come up to the mic, and there's a line, and the chair will say, next to the line, you say your name. Rich Sauls. For identification, you say your company, your affiliation, Rich Sauls, Akamai, and then you say what your point is. And if it's directly addressing a presenter, I think that the extension you wrote there could be better improved by doing this, and that's it. There are blue sheets which will go around. Those are done at the beginning of the meeting, collected at the end of the meeting. You write your name, your affiliation. Those are scanned and posted and put online, so we have a record of all the attendees. Again, that's to ensure compliance with, make sure there's no submarine patent work going on. We've been pretty good about that. And also to help plan in the future meeting. Well, the chairs, they go, oh, well, I've got 75 people who want to come to my next meeting, and we can look at the blue sheets and go, really? You only had 20 the last 3, so maybe we'll give you a smaller room. Any kind of technical comment and questions are discussed while somebody is presenting. Someone can come up to the mic and say, I have a clarifying question. I didn't understand what you just said about, and then details about what your confusion was. There is a jabber. And when we talk about the resources, Anshul will mention that. Instant messaging. protocol. There's always a Jabber room available, always a Jabber room open for people to put in questions and comments, and also to keep track of what the slides are. With that, I'll turn it back over to Chantal, unless someone has a question on what I just talked about for this week. Great. Me? Okay, I'll keep going. I'll try to bring it in on time, which means I will talk even faster. There's a person associated with the IETF named Eric Rescorler. He's often called by his initials, Eker, E-K-R. And his speaking style is the unit of speed for speaking. So people say, oh, I speak at half an Eker. Or I can speak at 0.9 of an Eker. And he speaks really, really quickly, and he's very technical, and it's really hard sometimes to understand him. Don't worry, you're not alone. But anyhow, I will speak a little quicker to try to get us to finish close to time. The Secretariat are the key resources for this week. The lovely people in blue shirts, I think they're all women. They're the ones who handle the logistics when we couldn't figure out how to get the slides projected here, right? There was somebody in a blue shirt who came up. They handle the registration, they handle all the paperwork, the coordination of everything. They collect the blue sheets, scan them, after the meeting and so on. Lovely people. We couldn't do this week without them. Also noticeable on Friday, as we're starting to take down everything, or they're starting to take down everything, they changed to Hawaiian shirts. RFC editor, there are two tables out by the in the registration area. One is for the RFC editor. Those are the people who copy, edit, and actually do the publishing of the documents once they've been approved by the IESG, having left the working group, having been written by the working group authors. So that's the workflow. The RFC editor. And then there's IANA, the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. That ensures, for example, that DNS uses port 53 and nobody else does. And HTTPS uses port 443 and nobody else does. There's a whole bunch of number spaces that have to be managed and assigned. Some of the numbers have names. So IANA handles all of that. Other notable thing about these two organizations, outside of their being friendly and some are paid and some are volunteers, they always have candy out. So if you need a quick pick-me-up, hi, I love the job you're doing. Portia Wen-Stanley is our interim executive director. The IETF recently went through a slight reorganization for legal purposes to form a legal entity as opposed to being this sort of amorphous thing. Guiding through that has been Portia, who is the executive director, signs the checks, keeps the lights on. The Ombuds team. The IETF has a very strict no harassment policy. Nobody should feel harassed, bothered, constrained from talking, constrained from giving their technical opinion. Similarly, you should feel constrained from insulting the way somebody looks or commenting on them or saying, I think you're really stupid. No, you can say that idea isn't good and here's why, but don't, obviously we know how to act like mature adults towards each other. A hard part of this is, as Anchal mentioned, many of these people have known each other for years or decades. So somebody will stand up, Barry Lebo will stand up and go, that's really dumb of you, Mike. Or Mike will say, that's a really stupid conclusion. You have to separate sometimes from the people. If they look middle-aged US with beards, they've been around for a long time. I'm not middle-aged. We have a team of ombudsmen. There's a policy about it, the ombuds team. There's an anti-harassment policy. There's pictures of the people involved. All three of them are very long-time IETF participants. If you see anything and they have a particular sticker on, it's a green tag at the bottom of this, neon green, go up and they will handle things appropriately and so on. On mailing lists, we have a organization called the Sergeant of Arms who has occasionally stepped in recently to try to make sure that discourse is civil, mature, and respectful. Who's who, working group chairs, those are the people, as I said, who will sit at the front and handle all of the things. They have a blue button like that on their badge. Sometimes the other important thing is the smiley face. That's a sticker anybody can put on, and it means I am willing to answer questions about the IETF. Obviously, Anshul and I are up here to help introduce you, and we're willing to answer questions about the IETF. So later this evening, when there is the welcome reception for everyone, as you're wandering around with, you know, plate of hors d'oeuvres and snacks or whatever it is, and you have a question, look, you can look for somebody, or you might recognize a familiar face. Do ask questions. We want people to come, learn, contribute, and not leave. We want to keep you here. And it's not because we make money, right? And the way you can participate purely by joining mailing lists. And it doesn't cost anything except some time and, you know, mental work to join a mailing list. Some resources. The Tao of the IETF, no disrespect intended to the Buddhists, that was name chosen deliberately, describes sort of the philosophical underpinnings of the organization. As Anshul talked about, we are unlike many other standards organizations. ISO ITU has 1 vote per country, and the National Standards Organization, ANSI, BSI, I forget what, you know, and so on. They pick who their representatives are going to be. Anybody can join the mailing list. Anybody gets an equal say. There's a specific newcomers page for this IETF, and there are also, the tutorials are all available, not just the newcomers, but going back in time, as we said, how to write, how to bring new work in, how to write an RFC, and so on. Get more meeting resources. All of these are available in the slides, which are on the data tracker. Next slide. Datatracker.ietf.org or dt.ietf.org. This is the website that manages all of the document workflow. Everything we do goes through the data tracker. So every working group, every team, which isn't quite a working group, as Karen mentioned at the beginning, the edu team, the people who do this. There's an RFC team who handle defining the content, not the content, but defining the style and markup of the RFCs. They all have pages on here. The most common thing I type is dt.ietf.org/WG for working group / and then what the working group's abbreviation is. The IETF is fond, perhaps overly fond, of coming up with pronounceable English kind of pseudo words, right? Lurk, T, DNSOP, no, not that, quick, and so on. So, but that's a way to find, and from there, as you see on the right hand, that works. As you see on the right hand side over there, that is a working group page. It shows all of the drafts that are currently in progress, what their state is. Sometimes they're waiting for the area director and the ISG to move them forward. Tabs across the top, the overview of the working group, the documents, the mailing lists. From the website, you can join any number of all of the IETF mailing lists are on datatracker.ietf.org. The tools is once you start to get involved in writing RFCs, then you may care about the tools, but for now, don't bother. The data tracker is your friend or the bane of your existence. Remote participation. Attendance is not required. The only time attendance is required is if you want to participate in the nominating committee or be selected for the nominating committee. We support remote attendance at all of the working group sessions. Many of the other sessions, like I said, this tutorial, the side meetings are not remotely available. And we have a team Meet Echo. Those are the people, the fine folks on the Meet Echo team. Very friendly and helpful. There's always a video AV person in the back of the room handling the streaming, the mics, and so on. The network. If you haven't logged into the IETF network yet, it is a thing of wonder. People arrive about a week early. They bring in all sorts of, working with the local telecom company. They bring in all sorts of extra capacity. There are a number of IETF networks, depending on whether you do, IPv6, IPv4, IPv6 and 4, 4 and 6, legacy, whatever it's going to be. For all of the ones that require a name and password, the name and password are IETF. The purpose of that is not to prevent people from getting access to the network. It's to make sure that we can do encryption, right? You log into the network and then you get keys and so on. We try to avoid, there was a big RFC published around shortly after Edward Snowden that says surveillance is a threat that we need to mitigate, so we try to move everyone towards encryption. Funny story, when I was walking around, I guess down the underground shopping center things, someone goes, I don't know what this IETF hotel is or where it is, but boy, do they have great internet. It really is amazing. And it will run through Friday, through the end of the session. There's a quiet space, there's a terminal room. It doesn't have terminals anymore. It just has wired power cords and wired Ethernet. There's a printer if you need to print your boarding pass or a last minute document. It's now out by the registration area so that you can there's a little sticky note on the printer that says how to access it. The help desk is also out in the registration area. Jabber, we use XMPP. It's an IETF protocol. There's a bunch of clients available here. I strongly encourage everyone to get Jabber set up if they can. There's a number of free and open Jabber services. There's a list of them there. And then every working group has a chat room. Working group name at jabber.ietf.org. Ask questions. That's where there'll be somebody called a Jabber scribe who will post, okay, literally the bulk of the slides, the bulk of the Jabber room, if there were one, for this session would be page 40, Rich at the mic, page 41, page 42, Anshul at the mic. And Karen signaling me to leave. So, yeah. Okay. Above all, we all encourage you to have a good week and enjoy it. These are slides from meetings, discussions. One of the social events, I think it was Prague 3 years ago, had firework display, which was pretty amazing. It's a fun time. It is definitely a expand your mind week. And it is exhausting, not just because of the long hours, but even if you're not on and you're not presenting, you're not talking about it, you're engaged technically for 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. So have a lot of fun. There is a survey. We'd like everyone to participate and click on the survey. In particular, if you have suggestions, if, next time Rich should wear long pants, whatever. We'll take any kind of feedback. It helps us improve. We take a lot of that feedback and bring it back in to constantly evolve the slides every single time. The Edge team is a mailing list you can see right there. And Thursday morning, there'll be a feedback session for newcomers to just, tell us what you think. Okay. If there's any questions, come to the mic or afterward come up to the table or Karen at the back of the room there. But we're officially done. Thank you. Oh, hey, I forgot one thing. Let's do a practice hum just so you know what it's like. Here's the way it works. The chairs will say, okay, here's what the question is, and they will always be the possible, it's always multiple choice, the possible answers, and then the last part of the question is always don't know enough, can't decide yet. So the question will be, did you find this useful? And the choices are yes, no, or can't decide. So how many people found this useful? Please hum now. How many people did not find this useful? Please hum now. How many people can't decide yet? Okay, so that was pretty clear consensus that this was useful. We've done our job. Thank you.